Hey, it's me again. In this lesson, we are going to apply color to our characters. Also, you'll be able to apply what you learn here to the rest of the characters. Let's get started. First, we need to create a new layer and bring it backwards, the ink layers. Then, lock the ink layers, since it will be easier to color this way since you won't color on them. Now select the main color and fill the silhouette. The brush I'm using for coloring is number 23. To color the crane, we are going to create a new layer and place it under the color layer we just created. Pay particular attention to not to color outside the edges of the images. Press Ctrl E to change the hue, saturation and lightness. Let's create new layers that we are going to subordinate to the color layers. So, create a layer and put it above the first color layer. Then press Alt and click on the layer to subordinate it. This means that we won't color outside the edges when coloring the characters. So, keep creating new layers for each color in order to paint each of the body parts of the characters, such as the skin, the hair, accessories, and so on. Remember that if you want to modify any color, you can do it by pressing Ctrl U and change the saturation until you find the desired effect. Okay, let's do the same for the background animal. So, in order to keep the animal in a secondary position and doesn't stand out so much, we're going to reduce the opacity of all of the layers corresponding to the animal. As a result, the crane colors are lighter than the character, and thus, this one stands out. Now we're going to create a new hue saturation layer, which will affect the rest. Let's click on Color and select a tone. After that, reduce the opacity of the tone to color of the image. The last step will be adding color to the line. To do so, let's lock the pixels of the ink layer and color over the line so that it fits more with the entire composition. Perfect! After coloring all the lines of the composition, what we are going to do is a subtle gradient on some colored area so that it looks nicer. To do it, let's select the gradient tool and apply it to all the layers in which we want to add a gradient. What I usually do is pick a slightly darker tone than the area where I want to insert the gradient. In order to not to color outside the layer, it's important we lock the pixels of the layer we are working with. Repeat the same steps in all those layers you want to apply a gradient. Okay, let's move on to the next drawing and repeat the same process. So first, create a new layer and bring it backwards under the ink layer, and then select a main color for our character. After coloring the entire image, as you can see on the screen, let's modify the hue and move on to the background image, the animal. For the animal, we are going to use another tone. Don't worry about the saturation of this color because we can change it afterwards. Now, as we did before, we are going to create subordinated layers above the bases. How are we doing this? By creating a new layer above the base layer and pressing Alt. This way the bottom layer is subordinated and we won't color outside. Remember that those layers that are above others overlap, which is under them. What does it mean? That any change introduced in the top layer will be visible. Either you add elements or delete them. Therefore, those elements you want to bring forward on a first plane must be on top layers. I recommend that you create contrasts between lighter and darker tones so that our characters stands out. Make sure that when working on the grayscale mode, they don't have the same hue. Regarding the snake, we'll repeat the same steps. It's true that we are going to use less colors, but we'll need to create contrast anyway. When all the colors are ready, we're going to match the tones by creating a new hue saturation layer. Then press color and select the color you like. After that, reduce the opacity. This way, all colors will reflect a green tone unifying the composition. To color the line, select the line layer, lock the pixels, and use colors a bit darker than the previous ones. This way, the composition will look nicer. To finish with, we're going to apply a gradient, as I explained to you before. Use the gradient layer and work with the layers where you'll insert the gradient. Don't forget to lock the pixels not to spoil other layers. You'll get much beautiful colors. So guys, these are our characters, colored and ready. And here on the other slide, you have the final 5 Kung Fu characters. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you the final characters, so you'll see how cool they are. Hope you learned and see you!